studio at Ab-Soul, I witnessed some shit that wasn't human. This nigga ain't gonna tell y'all, but I'm gonna tell y'all. I witnessed some shit that wasn't human. Shit had me fucked up. Alright, so Soul recording, they playing the beat. My man Soul went and sat outside on the porch with his head down. So I asked my other guy, I used to hoop, the dude that was recording, I used to hoop with him back in college. So I'm like, yo, what's up with Soul? He good? He like, what you mean? Because he was like, you don't know how he record? I'm like, nah, like, I'm asking him like, yo, he looked like he's sad or something. I don't know what's going on. Soul was sitting on the porch with his head down. He sat on the porch for about 10 minutes and didn't say a word. Right? I'm looking, I'm like, hey man, I don't know what, this is my first time in some industry type shit. I'm like, I don't know, man. You niggas up to some Illuminati type shit. I don't know. That nigga Soul got up and said, hey, start the verse. Nigga went in there and one take that shit. I said, oh my God. What the fuck? What the fuck? Bro, the nigga ain't had no pen, no paper, no cell phone, no nothing. No pen, no paper, no cell phone, no absolutely nothing. Head down, stood up and said, start that. At that moment, oh shit, this nigga's a demigod, dog.
You dropped a few singles, but the first thing that came to my attention when I discovered the name of the album was the saying, do what thou wilt. Which to me brought me to Aleister Crowley.
Correct.
And you know what Alice, you know who Aleister Crowley is.
Absolutely.
Right? And Aleister Crowley, was he the creator of
it's Thelema.
Thelema he's
Yeah.
the right?
Yeah, he's I believe so, yeah.
He was a magician, a poet, and he was also linked to Satanism.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah.
And so what made you decide, what does that mean to you, and what made you decide to name your project that?
Well, you know what? You're the first one to bring up the Satanism, and I'm so glad that you did, because it's all church with me.
Yeah.
Know that. So do what thou wilt immediately sounds like, free will. Immediately, you know what I'm saying? That sounds like free will in Old English, for sure. And Aleister Crowley has been influential throughout music and entertainment and ideology and philosophy, journalism for quite some time. If you're into that. I wanted to. He in this book, this album is based on that quote, "Do what thou wilt," which is in the book, one of his books, the Book of the Law. And love is the law. Love is the only law. Quote that stuck out with me was, "The righteous will remain righteous, and the filthy will remain filthy." So, him taking a wicked standpoint, pushing the envelope of evil or whatever you call it. But still quoting that, if you're going to be righteous, be righteous. If you're going to be ill, be ill. I respect that, because, my main thing is ain't nothing wrong with a righteous man, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I really, really, I really admire this guy. Like, if you really look into his work, if you're into poetry, if you're into writing, you will see a lot of his influence ran deep throughout history. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely something that you guys should look into for sure.
Yeah, he's featured on Sgt. Pepper's, like on the front of that album.
Yeah, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely.
Jay-Z got in a lot of trouble for wearing "Do What Thou Wilt" on his shirt.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
So
sure.
you think
he was
this
on the Dangerous cover?
Exactly.
Michael
so is this your
Exactly.
time to shine right now? But you're
Tight.
messing with this dude. Is this gonna be the breakthrough joint?
Well, I mean, but
Well, see, what he's saying is, are you signing your name on the
Like,
dotted
are you
line?
joining the
Are you
Illuminati?
signing your soul away?
oh no,
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Are you in the Illuminati?
I mean, what you think?
No, I know, but these are questions people going to.
But I'm saying, these, the Beatles being, amongst the greatest musicians of our time, Michael Jackson, you know, King of Pop. You know, the list goes on. Me being a scholar of, you know, hip hop, a scholar of music, a fan of music, I cannot deny his influence. So, like I said, you know, he's been linked with a lot of wicked, ill, satanic, even occultist type things. But he also acknowledges that the righteous will remain righteous and the filthy will remain filthy. So him acknowledging that alone lets me still ask, what would Jesus do? You follow me? If that's what he meant. And that's how I took it. Of course, we can't holler at him, but that's how I took it.
That's how you took it.
You understand?
So you're not worshiping Satan, basically.
No.
I don't know.
All right, peace, y'all. Peace. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the influence of pop culture on society. All right, the beginning of when it came into play and how it influenced, you know, a whole generation of people to be rebellious. All right. So it started in the baby boomers era, all right, which was about 1946 to 1964, all right. The term baby boomers came after World War II, where there was an increase in a lot of birth rates, all right. People were having babies at a outstanding number around this time. Now, with people having a lot of children around this time, all right, it was difficult for the media to get their message to the masses, okay? But it was more of a easier way for them to deceive the public, all right? So any message that they could display or would display to the public, people would receive it at an easier rate. Okay, and this is when they created the pop industry, all right? So the pop industry was basically tabloids, all right? You had music shows that came on television, all right? You had radio, all right? The news, all of these things were coming about around the baby boomers era, all right? Now, pop culture basically shaped the way that we think, all right, and the way that humanity is structured, all right. And I'm gonna break it down for you guys in a full sense, you know, from beginning to up until this point today, all right. So before pop culture came along, you had jazz and blues, right? You had musicians like Billie Holiday, Frank Sinatra, Louis Armstrong, Tony Bennett, and etc., right? They were all jazz musicians. And the message was more positive, all right? It was a more positive message that these artists were putting out, more like gospel, all right? Storytelling, things that had taken place in their lives, all right? But when pop came around, a lot of the melodies also changed, okay, with the music. In the 1950s, the church deemed rock and roll as the devil's music, okay? This is when the Lydian mode chords were created, all right? Now, the Lydian mode chords were banned from churches because they said it was evil, the way it made people feel, okay? When you played this chord around these times, it would often make people cry, all right? So, these type of melodies that were involved in pop music around the 1950s were actually banned in churches. Now, if we fast forward today, we see that a lot of this music that we listen to has that same structure, right? So, you know, a lot of those churches, they weren't far off when they were saying that pop music was of the devil, all right? Now, the Beatles actually helped usher in pop culture, okay? around this time when they first came into the scene, which was 1963. They made their lane, okay, and the children actually gravitated to the Beatles more, just off the simple fact that they were singing about relatable topics and also with a side of rebelliousness. They were just enough to be edgy, and then also they made radio-friendly music, all right? And then you had the Rolling Stones and Burden and the Animals. They came in after that, all right? But the Beatles were actually the first group to structure pop culture, and everybody else followed suit. Now also, around this time, the Beatles actually helped usher in the New Age movement. You guys may not know about the New Age movement. That's a lot of these practices that are known today as what some would call the occult. All right, you had yoga and meditation, astral projection, all of these things, Egyptian worship. All of this stuff was a part of the New Age movement, and Aleister Crowley was the foreman to actually promote this, okay, to the public. So in a sense, he did use the Beatles as an influence to influence these listeners to get involved with the New Age movement, all right? A lot of LSD and psychedelics came into play around this time as well, right? And we all know that John Lennon made a huge statement saying that the Beatles were actually more influential than Jesus Christ, all right? And he got a lot of flack for saying that. But at that time, the Beatles were very influential amongst the teenagers, all right? All right, so after World War II, a lot of parents around this time were hooked on drugs, right? Not prescription drugs or heroin or anything like that. They were on sedatives. You know, they had, you know, when you would go and purchase your food, you would go and get your groceries at drugstores, all right, around this time. So, you know, during this time, they would get like aspirins and sleep medication.
People can fall asleep any place. But did simple tension keep you awake last night?
Take Sominex tonight and sleep. Sominex is absolutely not habit-forming.
Just take 2 Sominex.
Things that would keep them, you know, disassociated in a sense, okay? So the government knew exactly what they were doing when they was putting this stuff out there, all right? And a lot of the kids started to rebel against their parents around this time because they seen how the parents were reacting to them, and you know, with the music being so influential and telling them, hey, join this cult and join our group, you know, and you know, you'll be one of us. You know, it kind of gave the kids a sense of being. So they, you know, they attached themselves to a lot of this pop music and pop culture. Now let's take a look at the word entertainment, right? Now the word entertainment is a ploy on controlling your mental, all right? The word entertain means to occupy and keep you entertained, right? But entertainment, that ment is half of mental, okay? So instead of them calling it entertainmental, they called it entertainment, all right? To keep the listeners' attention and grasp their attention, all right? Now, in my personal opinion, when the Beatles were taking off around this time, which was in the late 60s, going into the 70s, I truly believe that the reason why John Lennon was taken out of here was because he knew what he was participating in. Like I said, the Beatles were actually, they're not the first group to actually participate in some type of occultic practices, but they were the first to promote it to the general public, all right? And when you have that much control over the masses, it's a possibility that, you know, you can use that power for the wrong things, right? So now John Lennon realized what he partook in and didn't want any parts of it anymore, all right? So this is why he decided to kind of like almost expose it, but they had gotten rid of them before then. All right. I truly believe around the time when they recorded the album Yesterday and Today, right? Now, if we take a look at this album cover here, this is a form of spirit cooking, all right? As you can see, they have the doll babies, dismembered doll babies with the meat on them and wearing the white coats. This is the same thing Marina Abramovich is into, okay? This is a form of spirit cooking. This stuff has been going on for ages, all right? For ages. But I truly believe John Lennon realized what he was into and didn't want to partake in it, all right? Now, fast forward is when disco came into play, all right? Where they was influencing people to have sex and do drugs more, okay? So this became very popular in the disco era, all right? Drugs like cocaine started to have an uprise in the communities, all right? People were more and more disassociated with their parents, and pop culture was taking over, all right? So disco was a form of pop. You know, everything was synthesized. The music was more synthesized, you know, and it gravitated to the listener more. And these children that were listening to disco wanted to be a part of that party lifestyle, okay? So it was no more family orientation around the time when disco came into play. It was more like a party situation. So now when we take a look at pop, right, we see that the bar to be a pop artist is set so high, all right? It's almost like you have to be weirder and weirder, all right? The more weirder you are, the more of an opportunity you have to make it as a pop artist and influence people in pop culture, all right? You see people like Billie Eilish and all of these individuals, and, you know, Dua Lipa and all of these people, you know, all of these individuals had to basically partake in some type of weird nonsense to be influential. But then if we take a look at the males in pop culture around the disco era, right? This is when the androgynous era came into play, all right? Where styles such as like Prince and Michael Jackson and Led Zeppelin and all of these rock and roll groups, you know, they wore their hair long and they wore the tight clothes, right? Which was a fashion statement to say, hey, we're going against the grain, all right? And it made, you know, some form of women like these type of men, all right, at this time. And it became very popular around that time for men to dress as feminine as possible, all right? But if we take a look at pop today, it's mostly females pushing sex and prostitution to kids, all right? Therefore, a man has to have financial gain in order to pursue the woman he desires, right? Because this is the message that they want to push to the masses, okay? Keep us separated and divided at all times. You know, if you got the men that want to be women and the women that want to be men, you know, it kind of causes a sort of confusion, all right? But what I want to mention is that pop, the pop culture, which is short for popular culture, basically constructs our minds and thought pattern, okay, to affect the future generation. As I said, these songs are played on our emotions and sympathies, all right? When we hear these songs and stuff like that, you know, most of the time, it's a lot of these artists playing on people's emotions. You know, if you're having a bad day, they're going to make depressing music. You know, this is a lot of how pop culture is. It drives the listener into that direction. All right. But pop culture is basically an influence on what we see today. OK, so if we see people smoking and drinking and doing drugs and all of these type of things, pop culture is influencing this. All right. It's not just only through music. It's on television. It's on YouTube, the things we watch and see. These are all a part of pop culture. Okay, watching the news and tabloids, these are things that we see today that is a part of pop culture. Okay, it has nothing to do with just the musicians. It has a lot to do with what it influences on the listener. Okay, now another example I want to point out to you guys is the Nephilim. okay, being showed in the Paramount Pictures logo. All right, so now in the Nephilim in the Bible, there were 200 angels that fell from heaven, right? And they came down to earth and had 22 leaders, all right? But their job was to wreak havoc and to destroy humanity, all right? Now, these are the different demons. These each 22 stars that we see here are the representation of these different deities and demons that I always speak about. You know, you got Baphomet, you got Baal, Astaroth, all of these people, all of these different deities and demons are the ones that fell from the sky, okay? Now, in the Paramount logo here, there are 22 stars falling from heaven that circle around the mountain, which is said to be Mount Hermon, where the fallen angels had landed. All right, so you see there, they basically know what they're doing, okay? And when they did this, this was a way for them to construct the masses' mind and put it right in front of you. See, a lot of this stuff is subliminal messaging that we don't notice, okay? A lot of these things that take place are subliminal messaging, all right? Because this is how they influence us. This is how they get us to do these things and to watch these movies. A lot of these movies don't have positive messages in them, all right? But yeah, man, I hope I touched on that and got down to the point of where I discussed it for you guys, how pop culture influenced humanity, all right? Yeah, so I'm going to get to more videos for you guys on Patreon and on YouTube. I just been really busy, and peace and blessings, y'all.